Hey there, this is Tekken. Today I wanted to share some of my thoughts as to why some of the interactions in Tekken 8 feel particularly out of place. We'll go over some examples from other fighting games as well as previous Tekken titles to see if you can understand why Tekken 8 feels so foreign while still being a lot of fun, so let's get into it. Now obviously this is a video game, so all the design choices are made at the whims of what the developers find to be interesting, but it feels like previous Tekken games were more cohesive and moves behaved in more predictable ways. Take a move like Jack's back 1+2 for example. Jack shoots his arms forward like a gun, which pushes his opponents away. Makes sense, and the animation drives it home. But if I haven't activated heat yet, suddenly the move leaves the opponent standing, and I get to force a mix-up. And if I'm in heat and I choose to spend my heat dash, I'm able to get a guaranteed follow-up. Now obviously I understand why this happens. It happens because I chose to heat dash or was forced to enter heat via heat engager. But it feels arbitrary that out of all the back 1+2s I might land in a round, only one of them leaves me in the opponent's face, and only one of them gives me a guaranteed follow-up. I think this also ties into the frustration that a lot of players have with the offense in Tekken 8. A move that might even be launch punishable suddenly becomes plus if I choose to spend my heat dash. And these heat engagers tend to be moves with a lot of range. So now my risky launch punishable mid has become a half-screen missile that makes my opponent have to guess on block and I get a guaranteed follow-up on hit. Now let's compare these interactions to another Tekken game that has crazy combos and crazy situations, like Tag 2. Now, there's no way in hell that Tag 2 is a perfect game, but we can see that moves tend to behave in more predictable ways. Every time I press tag after hitting my opponent with a bound, a tag assault's gonna happen. I'm not limited to doing one tag assault per round, and it's up to the player to determine if doing more damage to the point character is worth putting the opponent's secondary character in rage. Or you could just play a Mishima, where every electric becomes a tag launcher that removes red life and keeps the opponent's anchor character out of rage. But moving back to Tekken 8, it always seemed like an odd design decision to me to make heat engagers mandatory, meaning that every time you land a move like Leo while standing forward 1+2, you will always be put into heat. But maybe you don't want to activate heat at the start of the round after blocking a single low. Maybe you want to save your heat so you can heat burst later in the middle of a combo. Now imagine if you could choose whether or not you wanted to enter heat after landing a heat engager, maybe by holding back or forward for example. Now the move behaves more like a tag assault. Whenever the player chooses not to perform an additional input, a heat engager will be performed. And if they input a direction, the move behaves how it would if you had already used all of your heat in that round. Just like how a bound move in Tag 2 will behave the same way every time unless you hit the tag button. I think this is part of a bigger issue with including meter in Tekken in the first place. I don't think meter has ever been implemented in a 3D fighting game where it felt like it made the game better. Some sort of special meter has been in 2D fighting games for decades, which is probably why it feels more natural. It's also been refined over many years, and different franchises have their own spin on it. Meter also typically has multiple uses, whether it be an EX move, a super move, or some sort of game-specific mechanic. It also doesn't feel arbitrary for a fireball to become an enhanced fireball, because that only happens when I press an additional input and when I have meter available. Either way, I hope Heat receives interesting changes in Tekken 8's future. Maybe Heat and Rage can even interact with each other. Imagine if you could spend your Heat to perform a move that takes your opponent out of rage, so you don't have to worry about rage arts. Then you'd be choosing between using heat for offense or defense. Let me know what you think and what changes you would like to see in Tekken 8. Thanks for watching.